Good Friday, and then you have Palm Sunday, or Palm Sunday, Good Friday, and then you have Easter. So basically, if we go back and we look at Jesus and him coming into his ministry, and then he, coming up to the time where he was about to go and be sacrificed and die on the cross, there was a lot of events that took place before that. So in understanding religion, basically what we do is we take a lot of things that happen and we make a commemoration of it.
Okay.
So that's basically what Palm Sunday is. So basically they're saying that's the day that he came into. I can't remember exactly what it was, but he came there and they worshipped him, they held him, and then the ministry took place and Good Friday came, and then basically they're trying to say that they're saying he died and 3 days later he came up. So what they try to do is a lot of people try to get very theological and say this is the day he died and this is the day he got up. So that's where Easter comes from. That's supposed to be the day that he rose. And a lot of people have gone from calling it Easter, because a lot of the association with Easter has nothing to do with Christianity at all, to saying Resurrection Sunday. So if you watch TV and a lot of stuff like that, they try to really steer away from the whole Easter idea, because everybody, Easter is very traditional in the sense of, what does the Easter bunny have to do with Jesus? What do the eggs have to do with Jesus? That holiday basically came out of a lot of pagan beliefs and pagan customs. And just so you understand what pagan is, pagan are basically people who didn't believe in God. They believed in other gods. So back in those times, to settle disputes and settle arguments, what they did was they would basically take Christian customs and Jewish customs, and they would mix them with pagan customs. So if you look at, in doing your research, if you look up what the Easter bunny means, if you look up what the eggs mean, if you look up what the grass means, those all have specific meanings associated with them, and you'll find out they have nothing to do with Jesus. They have nothing to do with Christianity. They're all based off of pagan customs, religions, practices. So that's basically the reason we don't celebrate Palm Sunday, Good Friday, and Easter is because it's not biblical.
Okay.
And I'm not saying it's not biblical in the sense of the resurrection of Jesus Christ is not biblical, and that's what Easter is. That's not what Easter is. And a lot of people have come to that understanding. But a lot of times what you find out and you'll see is people will come to a knowledge and understanding of the Bible, but they'll still practice certain things because of the tradition. A lot of people have an understanding and a knowledge of the Sabbath, and knowing that it's the seventh day, knowing that it was, it's the day that, Jesus set aside, sanctified, hallowed, blessed, and that it was the day that we were set aside for us to worship on, and that's the day that they practice and they worship on, and it was changed throughout history. And people know Sunday is traditional custom in the way they practice going to church, but they still go to church on Sundays. Because it's a tradition, it's the custom, it's the way, it's basically the way of the world. That's how people practice it, and I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but I'm just saying, like, once you come into the knowledge and the truth of something, you kind of go a different direction. You don't try to, stick with it just because it makes other people feel comfortable. You don't try to stick with it just because, you're going against the grain when you don't do that. Because a lot of times when we, for me, first coming into the Sabbath, first, talking about Christmas, first talking about Easter, that's practices that most of our family participate in, whether they go to church or not. When it comes to Christmas, we know that's what do we call that? The day Jesus was born. So if you're not celebrating that, then, why would you not celebrate the day Jesus was born? And it's easy, like, you can literally open up a history book. You don't gotta go in the Bible, you don't gotta go real deep and get theological with it and ask a doctor. You can literally open up a history book and it tells you Jesus is not born on December 25th. But because of the practices and the customs and that we have, we stick with those things. We stick with those ideas. And we practice a lot of things associated with them that have nothing to do with Christianity. Like, again, Christmas trees and the presents and stuff like that. Nothing to do with Jesus. Nothing to do with Christmas, or nothing to do with his, his birth, and those things and those sorts. Those were all, like I said again, practices and traditions that were brought over from a group of people who didn't believe in God and believe in Jesus, just so they could bring peace to those people. Because I don't know about you, but I like watching like ancient movies with Romans and different stuff like that. And if you watch those movies, you'll see some things in those movies that have some kind of connection with religion, even if it's not a religious based movie. Like you'll hear something or something that's associated or connected, and I was like, oh, that's, you know, for me, that's how I get my visual sometimes of what was taking place back in those times. You know, Gladiator and different movies like that. You get an understanding of, you know, how the emperors acted. And what they were doing was, you had people over here fighting about religion and fighting about this man who said he was the son of God. Then you had another group of people saying, okay, we worship the sun god, but it's literally the sun god, S-U-N. And then you have the son of God. So then we had to figure out, the emperor saying, okay, we got all this fighting and all this war going on. And if you watch any of those movies, what was the one thing they were trying to do? Bring peace to their empire, bring peace to their kingdom. So what do? They say, okay, we'll give you what you want, and we'll give you what you want, and we'll just mix this together so everybody can be at peace. So a lot of times, for me, that's just how I get an understanding of some of those things, and try to, you know, realize that a lot of times when we have to understand things that happen in the Bible, we have to understand the historical things that were taking place at that time in history, so we can understand what really was happening. Because if we just only look at it from a spiritual aspect, we won't have a true understanding. Because we won't understand why they were saying that. We won't understand what was taking place in that context of why Jesus said, or why certain disciples said, or why Peter said, or Paul said what they were saying. You know, we won't understand what was going on, you know, on the other side of it. So is that a good answer?
Yes.
Understand? Okay. So I can ramble a little bit. I'm sorry. So let's get back to Passover. Pesach, which is Passover, means to literally pass over. And as I was saying, going into the Last Supper, we understand Jesus was partaking in the Last Supper meal, and that during the Last Supper they had communion. But if we understand the Last Supper,